And we've got a caller. Tabitha's calling us from Lawrence. Hey, Tabitha, how are you doing, and how can we help you?
I'm fine. How are y'all?
We're doing good, thank you.
I actually have two questions. My first question is, I planted broccoli, and it is flowering. It is about 1.5 feet tall, and the head is maybe 1.5 inches round, and then it started flowering, and I don't know what to do.
All right, what's your second question?
Okay, I also have cauliflower, and it has got little purple spots in it, and I'm not sure if it's a bug or if there's something wrong with the cauliflower.
That's in the white part of it that you're going to eat?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yes,
all
ma'am.
right. Short broccoli.
Yep, sounds pretty common this time of year. When it starts warming up, broccoli is a cool weather plant, and it does what we call bolt. When it gets hot, the weather gets hot, it just immediately starts flowering. It's kind of a survival mechanism of the plant. And it's nothing you can really do about it this time of year. Once it gets hot, the broccoli's pretty much done.
Yeah.
So.
And I think actually it's the accumulation of cold that it's been exposed to, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, sometimes I think there's some varieties, if you're real careful, that you can select that are less likely to do that, Morgan?
Yeah, there are some. I would just read up on broccoli. I'm not sure of any of the names off the top of my head, but there are some that do withstand the heat much better. I would select one of those
And then
varieties.
purple spots on the cauliflower, I would try to get a magnifying glass or something. What would you do?
I think you see that pretty commonly, with those, they call them curds, like cheese, I think you see that pretty commonly. I think if I were her, I would just cut it and steam it for dinner.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a disease.
Nice
I think
little cheese sauce, and
it's part of the genetics of the plant.
If you used a cheddar cheese, then you'd have purple spots and orange cheese. And Morgan reminds us that that's our colors. So
have purple cauliflower now.
That's true. Bobby's called us from James Island. Hey, Bobby, how are you? And if you have purple spots, I hope that you're on your cauliflower and not on your nose. Are you there?
Yes, that's Bobby.
Yeah, hey Bobby, you're on the air. How can we help you?
I have squash plants. I have no male blooms, all female blooms.
You've been looking at them?
Yeah, and my neighbor down the street, same squash plants. I did them in the greenhouse and planted them up. He's got plenty of male blooms. I have nothing but female blooms. Is there something I'm doing wrong?
Well, I don't know. It's still pretty early in the season. What do y'all think?
I think it may I've never heard of that either. Maybe it's too early. It could be the temperatures. It's still really cool at night if they're outside. But
usually you get male blooms first and then female blooms.
That is unusual. But stuffed squash blossoms are absolutely delicious. So
there
maybe you should try them.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. I think I would just wait a little bit. We just got into the 80s and 90s, consistently with warmer nighttime temperatures. So I'd probably give it a little bit and make sure he's got lots of pollinators, coming around, and he's watching his pesticide applications.
It sounds like he's really pretty savvy about all that if he's actually getting down looking. Bobby, we sure hope that resolves itself and that you'll have a nice pot of steamed squash on the stove pretty soon. Yeah, that was an interesting comment. Let us know, Bobby, how things happen in about a week or two if you've got everything there. Joe is calling us, and he's in Due West. Hey, Joe, how's everything in Due West?
It's pretty warm here. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling us.
I have a question about transplanting pawpaw trees. I'm a backyard fruit grower, small dimension, and a friend of mine gave me about 5 small, about 2 foot tall pawpaw trees that he had just pulled up. He's moving.
Yes.
And I just wanted some tips on transplanting them.
Well,
actually,
I think you've got them, okay. But you've got them, they're just bare root.
Right, they're bare root and actually very sparse root. And I was very skeptical that they would transplant at all, but I've actually transplanted 3 of them, and they seem to be thriving. But there are 2 that are I'm still maintaining in a moist container.
Okay.
But I was just wondering if putting some root hormone on the roots might facilitate their rooting a little bit better.
Well, let's see what Morgan has to say. Okay, thank you. And it's always fun when people try new things. We applaud you for trying new things. Of course, pawpaws are native. Well, he's had good luck so far.
Yeah, I have a friend in Vance, South Carolina that he needs to meet who is very into pawpaws.
Really?
He has been transplanting. He actually gave me 2 plants,
Whoa.
which I still have in containers and have yet to plant. But he's had great success transplanting them. I do know that they do cross-pollinate. You need more than one variety, so hopefully he has that. I would say just go ahead and plant them. Mine, I didn't think they were going to come back from the winter, and sure enough, just last week I saw leaves coming out, so I was really impressed. But I'm excited to get mine in the ground too, because they're a really neat plant. In native settings, they typically are understory plants, so you find them in really shady areas, often along riverbanks, because that's how they were transported by Native Americans many years ago. So it's a really interesting plant with a lot of history in our state.
They are, and I think sometimes you almost have to get a brush and do some pollinating by hand, which is would really expand your horticultural range of talents, wouldn't it? Okay, great. Well, I think you've got some pretty show and tell for us. What'd you bring?
Morgan
brought it. I'm sorry. You just brought your lovely self.
And Morgan.
Well, Amanda, these are 2 irises that I picked out of my yard this morning. They've been absolutely beautiful this year. I've had so many different colors, and I forget which ones I have every year, and then when they start coming back out, it's so exciting. I didn't even know I had an orange iris until last week. So, of course, I had to put my orange and my purple irises together for my Clemson colors.
A lovely combination.
And I've also got some salvia. It's the Hot Lips variety. And this plant is just so hardy. It blooms all summer long. It loves full sun, heat, dry weather, lots of rain, and it came back so well from the winter when I had other salvias it didn't. So I just love it. I can't recommend this plant enough.
I know, it really is a wonderful one, and just blooms so long, doesn't it?
Salvias are awesome plants.
They
really are.
So many pretty colors.
I know that, and your friend down there does talks on them.
Tony kind of. In fact, he and I are going to take that talk that he did. We're going to compile it and do an article on our Sunday column. We're going to join forces and do a big
because he gives a great talk about salvias.
Can't wait to
read
it.
A vegetable expert, and that's not surprising. He's a man with so many talents.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mark is calling us from Columbia. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hello. It's hot in Columbia.
Columbia is famously hot, and they're now advertising that as a come-on. So we have to be excited about it.
I don't know if I'm too excited about it.
We'll talk to you in August.
Yeah.
What's happening in your garden?
Oh, well, it wasn't my garden. It was more like a farmer's garden. I've got a silly city folk question for you, because I was driving up to North Carolina on I-95, and there's a bunch of farmer fields out there, of course, and they're all vibrantly green, of course. And, you know, not like a foot tall or anything. They're all moving at 70 miles an hour. Except there's a couple of plots out there randomly that are just vibrantly yellow with something in bloom. That's a yellow flower. And I just wanted to know if you have any idea what that is. I heard, I did a little looking up on the internet, and maybe it's the bean from
well, let's see what what ideas we've got.
Well, it's too bad Trish DeHaan isn't here tonight, because she's hosting a canola field day, and I saw that on her Facebook feed this week, and I think he's probably talking about canola, which is just beautiful.
A member of the mustard family, so it has those big, and it would be flowering out now, because as you said, it's in that family that it's finished with being vegetative, and now it's going into the reproductive stage. And it's becoming a pretty big plant in South Carolina. Wonderful for oil content, and when you see it in the fields, it is just gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I was going to ask you, maybe your friend in Vance, if he would want to, could post some information on our Make Them Grow Facebook page for people who had questions about pawpaws.
Yeah, maybe
to have
so.
A pawpaw expert. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I doubt he has Facebook. He's the only friend I have that doesn't have a cell phone, so he might have to call him.
But he has pawpaws, and he may be the only friend you know who has pawpaws.
Yeah.
Well, we have a friend who has cell phones and pawpaws, maybe not in his yard, but they're pressed flat and squished and dried, and that's just the way he likes them in his herbarium, and that's Dr. John Nelson. And now he's going to come to us with this mystery plant. Dr. John?
Okay, Amanda, we have a mystery plant tonight that is a perennial herb.
Yes.
And I took some pictures of it on my way to campus as I was on my bike riding through Maxie Gregg Park. Now, this is a plant that some people might think is a grass or a sedge, but of course it's neither one. Its stem is very, very characteristic of the group in which it belongs. It's round. It's perfectly round. And this particular kind of plant produces flowers, and the individual flowers are like miniature lily flowers, very tiny, and not particularly pretty unless you have some kind of a hand lens or something to look at. The roots are very tough on the most of the perennial species, and they'll form a very tight mat down below, so that the plants are very frequently quite a dense clump of these things. And it's a plant that really likes wetlands. There are a good many species that grow in South Carolina, and of course, when it goes into fruit, the little flower, the ovary will turn into a little capsule with a lot of teeny little seeds. And another thing about this particular species is that the leaves don't have any blades. They're sort of sheathing on the stem, so you don't really see any leaf blades coming off of the stem.
Look at that.
Like I said, there's a good many species of this one, but this is probably the most common one of the species in our area. In fact, in the Northern Hemisphere.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this is something that is included with the grasses in the baskets that the Charleston ladies make, and you could make a basket and maybe put a baby floating in it. So maybe it's
like a rush or a reed. I was thinking rushes.
A rush? Is that right?
That's right.
It's a rush, and juncus, is that?
That's right.
Okay.
The genus, the common name of the genus is rush, and of course, the genus is juncus. And like I said, there are a lot of species, and they're not always easy to tell apart. Most of the time, you have to have the ripe seed pods so that you can see the seeds and stuff.
Oh, it sounds like something you would have made us try to identify when you were being my professor instead of my friend. But,
well, I know a lot of those students like to complain about the hard plants that were on the test.
And when we were in Lake City a while back at the Jones Carter Gallery and saw the wonderful exhibit of African Americans who had connections to South Carolina, the baskets, the sweetgrass baskets, also in the list of ingredients, rush was one, and apparently that was not at all uncommon for that common plant in the wetlands to be included because of the strength that it had. As you said, it's kind of tough. So, so that was a lot of fun, John. Well, I'm happy to learn about that. And these two gals, now when they see it in the middle of the highway in the ditches, I think they'll know what they're looking at. It's a beautiful plant, and I'm glad you brought it and shared it with us tonight.
I think this is sort of a pretty one, and I think I'm going to try to grow some in a pot in a very wet soil. It might work out.
Well, if you don't have that, drive the car through the yard and get a wet, ditch, compact it and put it in there, and it'll be fine, I promise you. Okay, John, see you later.
All right, Amanda,
Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. And we're going to check in with our friend Terasa in the chat room and see who's chatting and what they're chatting about. Terasa?
Thanks, Amanda. We have a good crowd in the chat room this evening. 18 speakers currently and 9 viewers. A lot of regulars, Susan, Anita, Tony, and then also some newcomers as well. So we welcome you whether this is your first time or whether you log in regularly each week. You can ask a question, chime in with an answer, or just soak it all in. Perhaps improve your green thumb or your want-to-be green thumb. Questions are all over the place, lots to do with things that might have happened this winter due to the unusual weather, extreme cold that we had, and whether or not things will recover. So join in to find out more. Amanda, back to you.
And Terasa, you always put interesting things on our Facebook page, and that's a good place for people to go to kind of keep up with topical things as well. How do people find that?
Oh, our Facebook page is very easy to get to. If you just search for Making It Grow, you should find it, and you can post anything. You can ask a question, post a photo. Lots of photos. I refer to Dr. John for identification. We did have someone ask where their photo went. If you submit a photo and not in a message, it will show up in the post by others. So don't worry, we didn't delete it. It just shows up in a column on the right-hand side of the page.
All righty, we're not going to delete your picture. We are happy to get your pictures. And Terasa is good about keeping everything organized there. And John is calling us from Lexington, South Carolina. Boy, there are some pretty fabulous farmers over there, and Powell Smith helps a lot of them with vegetables and strawberries and things. But John, what's your question tonight?
Well, I started some peppers and some tomatoes from some seeds from the various fruit. Put them in like some old strawberry flip-top plastic containers, dirt, blah, blah, blah. Kept the lid closed. They all grew nice. I transplanted them 2 weeks ago. They haven't grown at all.
Well, how big were they? How tall were they? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm going to guess somewhere 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Did you have a nice seed germinating mix, or did you just have some soil out of the yard?
No, this is I think a Vigoro product that has the
okay. It was a
good
nice
soil
okay.
plus the fertilizer mixed in.
Okay. Well, they were doing fine, and now they're out in the yard, and they're just sitting there saying, "We don't know about this."
In my experience, tomatoes do not grow very well when it's still cool at night, and it's still been pretty cool at night, and peppers are in the same family as tomatoes, and I think that I've seen them just sit there, and then as soon as it starts warming up and the nights get warmer, that's really when it's critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he hardened them off a little bit before he went from that, that nice protected environment indoors, out to the garden. So they may have a little bit of,
culture shock
going,
shock.
a little shock going on. And
but I think you really
Morgan
feel
said,
like when it warms up, they're gonna, if given enough, water and everything. Now, some people like to just pour the nitrogen to their tomatoes, and I did that one time, and I didn't get any tomatoes. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, nitrogen promotes foliar growth and not fruit production. So you might get a huge, really green, healthy-looking plant, but no fruit.
I was just looking and looking.
Go easy on the nitrogen.
Okay, all right. Carol's calling us from Swansea, not too far from me. Hey, Carol, how are you tonight, and how can we help you?
I'm fine, Amanda, and I love your show.
Well, we appreciate your watching.
We have a problem in our yard.
Oh.
We have holes, and they're like 1¼ inch diameter and about 3 inches deep. And they sort of got a mound on them. And we never had them before, but we got them now. They're just like scattered all over.
Scattered all over and not necessarily near where the plants are. I mean, it just like kind of random?
Yes.
Well, in my yard, which isn't too far from you, it's an armadillo.
Yeah.
And anybody, if you feel like that may be what it is?
We have a lot of clients that are having issues
horrible
with armadillos, but the mounding, it could be squirrels, it could be, they're a little big around, little diameter seems a little large for it. Sometimes you have earthworm activity.
But she said
that's pretty big.
Like this.
So it's probably armadillos, maybe squirrels, but usually.
But they're in our part of the world now, and they're
really
real
are.
random. They're not after your plants. They're just after earthworms and grubs and things. And I'm trying to capture one, and I have not had success yet. So they can be a problem. So why don't you look at some things online that give you pictures of them, and then go and compare that with what you've got. And then there are some strategies for using a have-a-heart trap that you can capture them, but you've got to use baffles and things because you can't really bait the trap. You have to just hope that they wander into it, stumble into it, and you kind of guide them into the trap. But they are here. They are here to stay, and I'm sorry that they've come to your yard because they are kind of difficult. Milton says, way up there in Pickens. Milton, did it decide to get warm in Pickens, or are y'all still having cold weather up there? Hey, Milton, are you there?
Hey. Yes. Are you there?
Go ahead. You're on the air.
My question about knockout roses.
Yes.
I have some with white leaves are turning a little white with little holes in them, and I thought they were disease resistant, but we're having a little problem here in Pickens with some of these knockout roses like that.
So some of the leaves have little white spots or holes?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it on the old growth or the new growth?
Are they on the new growth or the old growth, Milton?
Do what?
Is it on the old leaves that kind of hung on through the winter, or is it brand new leaves?
Oh, it's all new leaves. They all put out real nice and got real pretty roses on them, but they have these little white specks on the leaves, and some of them getting holes in them, like something's eating on them.
Okay. Now, when you walk by, if you knock the bush, do the white things fly up in the air?
They just turn into white.
Oh, just turn them white. Well, I just don't know.
I don't know either. I think that he probably needs to take a sample to the extension office there in Pickens and let someone take a look at them because, you know.
It doesn't sound like typical rose.
It doesn't, and it's kind of early in the season for some of the diseases. So.
Milton, we have an office right there in the city of Pickens where, and you can take a sample in there and leave it if the agent isn't there, and they will look at it for you and call you and try to talk with you and figure out what it is and try to give you some ideas of how to handle it. And you're right, they are supposed to be resistant, but you know, when you plant, they're so pretty and everybody likes to plant a lot of them, and then sometimes I think, does that kind of overcome the resistance?
Well, one thing I always like to tell people is that resistance doesn't mean immune.
Okay.
It just means they might get the disease, but it's going to be maybe not as prevalent and as bad. So
Okay.
doesn't mean they won't get them.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I don't know of any real disease problems he'd have right now.
Oh,
So
yeah, I hope it'll be something easy to take
Yeah.
care of and that you'll have really beautiful flowers. Well, Bobby's calling us from Cross. Cross is one of my favorite places to go. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere and all these lovely people who live there, Bobby, and we're glad to put you on that list. How can we help you tonight?
Hello?
Hey, you're with us here on Making It Grow. How can we help you?
I just wanted to make a comment, Amanda, on the South Carolina Wildlife Magazine. I read your article.
Oh, thank you.
And I enjoyed it very much. And I just want to tell you that it was a nice article.
Well, I appreciate it. Really.
And my tomatoes are really growing good down here across. You're real far from me. If you need some, you holler.
Okay. You be sure to leave your You leave your telephone number with those people, and we'll be down there soon with the mayonnaise and the bread. And thank you for the. I do write with South Carolina Wildlife Magazine. They've really been nice to me, and it's a great magazine in spite of having my columns in it. If you don't have a subscription, I encourage you to get one. We're real proud of our DNR agency here in South Carolina. And now I'm real proud about what they're doing down there in a lower part of the state, not St. Matthews, but St. George, and I'm going to find out more about it. And while I make my way over there, we're going to check in with Teresa and hear more about the chat room. Teresa?
Thanks, Amanda. Well, the conversation is still going strong. I'd like to share a photo with you. You know, just because something is old or dilapidated doesn't necessarily mean you have to throw it away. And that is evidenced by this photo shared by Teresa Kidd of Woodruff, South Carolina, where you can see a very creative use for an old truck bed that has been turned into a planter. So by reusing old things, we can keep materials out of landfills, which is definitely a good thing. Now, I don't expect many people are going to be turning their trucks into planters, but if you have old, broken terracotta pots, I know I have some at my house, maybe look for a creative way to reuse them or upcycle them instead of sending them to the landfill. Now let's check in with Amanda and her guest at the side counter.
Thank you, Teresa, and we want to welcome Jennifer Quattlebaum. She's come up from St. George, where she is working with a new organization. Tell us what y'all have going on.
Sure, we have a new farmers market in St. George. It is a community effort. The market is operated by the town of St. George. We have such a strong agricultural base up in our area that it just makes sense to have a market up there.
Well, we're delighted that that's happening. And are you getting participation by local farmers?
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. We currently have 3 local growers and other folks at the market as well. We have room for 16 vendors and we already have 15, so we're going to have to make room for more.
Well, isn't that a wonderful predicament to be in? Well, let's talk about some of the beautiful things we have. And, you know, we were talking about how it's kind of the end of the season, but we've got that last batch of these beautiful South Carolina cole crops coming in.
We sure do. We sure do. This over here we have some beautiful cauliflower and broccoli that we got today from Gruber Farm and CSA in St. George. They also shared some other things with us as well.
And the kale, of course, is so beautiful as well.
This beautiful kale, as well as the red leaf lettuce, came from Ron Robinson over at Ron's Roots up in the St. George area as well.
Well, they would make a wonderful salad, and I think now that we've got this hot weather, we're kind of transitioning out of our greens and into some of our summer greens. And then in front of that, those little peas, I could just pop one open right now.
Aren't they beautiful? Those peas also came from Gruber Farm and CSA in St. George, as did a few other things at the front of the table. Those cute little
those tiny, fresh, wonderful new spring vegetables, aren't they charmers?
Aren't they great?
They really are. And then I see that you've got some precious little carrots, and think how tender they would be. A nice way to get children interested in carrots, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. You don't even have to have any ranch dressing with those, right?
And in addition to the wonderful red potatoes, you've got a pretty unusual color out there.
Well, Gruber Farms also sent us some purple potatoes. I think that's a little Clemson thing.
Well, you know we do that sometimes.
I know.
And but if you think, oh, enough vegetables, I think I want a little something sweet. Gosh, have you got something that's just perfuming the studio?
Well, I was not going to come up here in May without a big basket of strawberries. These strawberries are from Sweatman Farms right there in St. George, and they are delicious. And I'll tell you, I hear from them that they cannot pick them fast enough. People just want them all the time.
And these are probably Carolina sweets, but still we're going to a slightly different taste test. But look at these beautiful fresh spring onions you've got for us.
Aren't they beautiful? And they're just delicious. I made something with them earlier this week, and they're so mild. They're wonderful.
Wonderful, mixed with that wonderful lettuce that you've got the farmers bringing into the market right now too.
That's right.
And then some people just like to do things that are fun and decorative. And who is doing that down your way?
Miss Nona Clark is just a wonderful backyard gardener in the area, and she provides us with these beautiful gourds for the market. Miss Nona also provides some other things for the market as well.
And what is that?
Well, she provided us today with this beautiful topiary.
Oh, I was admiring that.
Isn't it beautiful?
How many years do you suppose she's worked on it?
5 years. 5 years, and it's gorgeous. So she provided us with the topiary today, as well as the petunias that we have over here, and the plumosa, which was a fern that I was unfamiliar with until I met with her today.
It's wonderful to use if you're making headbands or arrangements for brides and all, because it holds up out of water so well, doesn't it?
I bet you love it.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I love that kind of stuff. And then we've got some people who look like they're doing a little bit of creative work, or maybe handling some insects.
We sure do. We have room at our market for artisans and craftspeople from the area. So Mr. George Axum in the area provides us with some delicious local honey.
Oh, after they do all their work as pollinators.
That's right. And you know, we have something unusual at the market, at least I think it's unusual. There is a family in the area, the Mazzell family. Miss Dixie Mazzell is the mom, and she provides us with these beautiful crocheted items. She has all kinds of beautiful, isn't that sweet?
Isn't that precious thing?
And we have them in blue too, of course. She provides us with these beautiful items. And then her son and daughter-in-law gave us these boiled peanuts to bring up here
today.
We tasted,
they were delicious.
They're delicious. CJ's Peanuts. And then her daughter is a local author.
Oh, word in heavens.
So sometimes her daughter, Sherry Mazzell, comes to the market as well with her books and does a little signing for us.
My gracious, what a talented community. And then I'm sitting here, and even though this is in a plastic bag, I'm getting some pretty good popcorn smells.
I tried this kettle corn for the first time last week. I had never had kettle corn before. And I'll tell you what, it is absolutely delicious. And we're so fortunate that he's agreed to come to the market each week.
And what is kettle corn?
Kettle corn is popcorn that's popped in a huge copper kettle.
A copper kettle?
Yes.
Woo.
And it's a little bit sweet and a little salty. So you get a little bit of both.
Oh, my mouth is drooling right now. I won't even be able to finish the interview. And then in front of Terasa, her desk looks a little dressier than usual.
Yes, we have a great artist right in St. George, Miss Virginia Bond.
Yes.
And she comes to the market and brings some of her artwork to the market. So I asked her today to provide me with something that I could bring up here and show everybody.
And did she bring the picture over in front of the desk as well?
Isn't that beautiful?
It really is. A
She
low
sure
country
did.
scene, and truly, truly beautiful. Well, it just sounds like y'all have all the bases covered down there. What a wonderful community to be a part of. And as you said, it's a community effort. And what day are y'all there again?
We're there every Thursday from 2 until 6.
From 2 until 6. And at the end of the show, we're going to come back and let you tell us exactly how we can find you through Facebook or our websites and things like that.
Wonderful, thank you.
At the end of the show, we're also going to open some of this kettle corn and also eat some strawberries.
I can't wait to share it.
Because it really is just too good to pass up. Thank you. What a beautiful display.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for what y'all are doing for our local farmers in South Carolina.
It's our pleasure.
All righty. And now let's check back in with our local water quality expert who came over from Florence. That's pretty local for us too, Miss Terasa. Terasa?
I know everyone enjoyed that segment. You know, we get lots of questions on our Facebook page, and I wish that I could answer them all, but I can't. I don't have much professional training in horticulture, but I know I have great people within the extension system, and we have very talented people on the panel tonight, so I'm going to ask them this question sent in by Tracy LaPointe. She said she had a beautiful 3-year-old Don Juan rose. It's bloomed a beautiful dark red each year, but this year it's covered with bright pink or fuchsia blooms, and she wanted to know, what has she done wrong? So ladies, what do you think?
My goodness. Well, if someone cut and brought me roses of either color, I would be very pleased. Hint, hint, hint. But anybody have any ideas?
Well, we have a few theories.
All right.
You want to? Well, one of them may be temperature related.
That's what I would think.
You thought that, and then we also thought that we'd have to do a little research, but if that was a grafted rose and maybe the cold weather or some other problem interfered with the, with the Don Juan top part of the rose, maybe that the graft, the grafted scion underneath, the original rootstock underneath is what's actually flowering, but which happens, but we don't know for sure without looking at it. But at least she's getting flowers. She's getting flowers,
and they're beautiful. So I would just be happy for it. So unless it was picked to go against the potting shed that's just one color, I think you're probably still happy with it. And if it turns back when the weather changes and gets warmer again, let us know. We'd be interested to know if it's transitory or if it's permanent. We've got a call from. We had such a good time a while back. We spent a lovely, lovely day in the Low Country near where Amy is, and we went out to Middleton Place. There's so many grand places down there, and this time we went to the courtyard where they have artisans who show how things were done in the old days. I think you're going to enjoy our visit with the potter. We're at Middleton Place outside of Charleston with Jeff Neal. Jeff is the interpretive potter. Jeff, tell me the history of pottery making here at Middleton as it would actually have occurred.
Well, here at Middleton Place, first and foremost, the Middletons did not have a potter like myself here. And the main reason being that is they happened to live about 20 miles north of one of the largest shopping centers on the East Coast at the time, and that's the city of Charleston. There's tons of pottery comes in, so there's no need to have a potter out here, not when you can buy something, let's say 10 times better than what he could produce.
Well, who was making pottery?
The slaves, though, here on the property, especially in the 18th century, they were making tons of pottery out here. Now, the important thing to remember, though, more than anything else, is that the pottery they're making, it's got nothing to do with the Middletons. They're making it solely for their own use. And they're doing what archaeologists refer to today as colonial ware. And colonial ware has 3 traits to it. One, it's a very low fire clay. It's a very impure clay. And here at Middleton Place, the slaves would have gotten the clay either from the riverbank or from the marshes here on the property. Secondly, the pottery colonial ware is not made on a wheel. It is all done by hand. Okay? They're doing what are called pinch pots and coil pots. If you ever did pottery in school, that's probably what you made. More than likely, it's a very simple form, but it's a good form. And then lastly, they are not glazing their pots, nor are they firing them in a kiln like I would do. They're putting these in fire pits, which are basically just holes in the ground that they've dug. They're placing the pottery in, they're putting some combustibles, and they're building the fire on top of it.
You've got all these broken up pieces of stuff here that look kind of fancy. Are those your mistakes, or where did they come from?
No, those are pieces that they've all been found here on the plantation. Matter of fact, some of the pieces we're looking at here have been found within the past 3 or 4 days. I usually find this stuff after it rains. When it rains out here, I'm probably the happiest boy in the plantation because I get to go play in the mud and see what we can find. And basically what we're looking at, we're looking at trash here. These are things that probably got broke or discarded. And you and I have this wonderful man called the garbage man. He comes and he picks up our stuff, he takes it away, we don't worry about it. The Middletons, and I should also say the slaves, they don't have this. They're using what are called midians or trash pits, which are basically just holes in the ground that they're throwing this in. When it gets done, they fill it up. Or the other big place they're throwing this in, the privy. I have a friend of mine who's an archaeologist, and I know when he finds a privy hole, he's like a kid at Christmas. He gets all excited because as he's told me, he's like, the privy is where you find all the good stuff. I'm not sure why that is, but the pieces we're finding, I would say 75 to 80% of them are imports. They're coming from overseas. A lot of European, a lot of English, like you would expect. There is also, especially in the 18th century, We have a lot of stuff made in China.
You're demonstrating not the colonial ware, but a pot that would have been made for the family by the slave potter. Take us through that process.
Well, the first thing we do is I cut the clay, and then we actually do what is called wedging, and this is basically me rolling out the clay. It's kind of like if you've ever made bread and you have to knead the dough to get rid of the air bubbles, make it a little more elastic. I've got to do the same thing with the clay. Once that's done, we'll beat it into a ball, and the one we're using here today is probably about 2 pounds. And then I put it on the wheel, and the wheel that we're using is actually a replica of an 1850s wheel. It's basically me sitting up there, and I'm kicking the stone, and the stone is about 80 to 90 pounds, and that's what turns everything for me. The first thing we do on the wheel is we have to get the clay centered. And basically what that means is that we need to get it in the middle of the wheel so it turns nice and smooth, so when I'm making the pot, it'll stay nice and straight instead of going lopsided on me.
So the forces are equal.
Exactly, yes. So we'll get it centered on the wheel, and as soon as I get it centered, then I just take my thumbs and we open up the pot. And as I open it up, I'll start smoothing out the sides, and then we do what is called pulling, which is basically myself pinching the clay, and then we start bringing up the height. When we get it to about 6 to 7 inches, then I get to do what I say is the fun part and also the scary part. This is where I put my hand on the inside, and we just start pulling it out so we can make that bowl shape. And once I get it to the right size that I want, we'll take my fingers, we'll go on the top, we'll press down, we'll make a little lip, and then I'll just take a little sponge and we'll kind of clean out, smooth out the outside, get rid of the water, and there's our bowl.
Okay. And from there you dry it and finish it in a kiln.
Yes, we have to get every bit of water out of that clay first, because if there's any water in there when it hits the heat of the kiln, she'll blow up, exactly. Right now it takes me about 4 to 5 days, and then we'll fire it, and it'll take me about a day and a half to fire.
Would the summertime have been a hard time to get things to dry out?
In the summertime, with our humidity, my 4 to 5 days of drying right now turns into about 8 to 10 days of drying.
It sounds like this was a remarkable part of the life. And again, just to show the connections that, here the African people brought their own way of doing things, and then they evolved over time and were an integral part of the plantation life of South Carolina settlers. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
You're welcome.
Always a wonderful place to go when you go down to Middleton Place in Charleston and all the other wonderful places there. You have a close association with Magnolia, I think.
Yeah, we get master gardeners volunteer a lot there, and we really enjoy working with them. I am really enjoying your hat tonight. I love the colors and the mix.
I think the smell is just so incredible.
Delicious.
Wow, it is.
Of course, it's pittosporum blossoms, and we have a huge pittosporum, and I was really surprised it was not harmed at all. Because, sometimes they are really blasted back. But this one came through and then just flowered away. And then you were talking about that you had not seen this in this color, the
Baptisia.
Baptisia.
Yeah, I've seen the blue one before, but never the yellow. That's really pretty.
And it's a really fun native plant if you haven't grown Baptisia. This is the more yellow one. And it's in the pea family, and it's an easy plant to grow. I love it in my garden. It comes back every year. I just love things that come back without any trouble, just like hot-lip salvia. Kathy's calling. Oh, David is calling us from Lawrence. David, how are you tonight, and how can we help you?
I'm doing good. I have an imperial rose that is about 14 years old. And this year, we're noticing black marks on it, like a rust, and little black and brown aphids.
This is on the foliage?
Yes.
On the foliage. Okay. Well, he thinks that he may have some rust. Anybody have any ideas? I've had some rust problems on some other things in my yard, and I think it's because it was cooler. I know that sometimes rust is more of a problem, I believe, when we have these long, extended cool periods, because it's a fungus, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
He'll need to be on a pretty regular fungicide regimen, especially with the humidity bumping up here now that the temperatures are going up.
Okay.
And, I think the aphids, depending on how many he has, and how much damage they're doing, there may be enough predators in his yard if he has a lot of other flowers, lots of little anoles and, frogs and things.
Can he use insecticidal soap pretty safely on those?
He can. Just make sure he gets good coverage, the front and the back sides of the leaves, and, really cover everything with that stuff. It'll do a good job.
And Kathy's calling us. She's in Monk's Corner. Hey, Kathy, we're glad that you called us tonight. How can we help you?
Yes, I have a clematis. It's an autumn blooming clematis. And I had trimmed it back. I was told to trim it back down and to only have, like 3 main little
shoots.
Shoots. And I did that when I did it in February. And I have a trellis, and it is now 6 foot tall and about 4 foot wide. And I'm just trying to figure out how to contain it, or whether, do I need to, I don't know, tie it around or whack it away. It's normally beautiful little white flowers. It's gorgeous, but
Well, they can be pretty
it's
vigorous.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
They can be the autumn flowers can be vigorous.
And that sweet autumn is invasive.
It's invasive, yeah. So if you have the invasive one, this little small trellis is probably not going to be enough to contain it. You may be able to take. I don't know if Dr. John will be able to identify it from the leaves. I think he'd have to have the pictures. But even if it's the sweet autumn one, it's everywhere, and you could enjoy it, don't you think?
I had the exact same thing happen. I trimmed mine back. It was, needed to be controlled, and it's just going right back gangbusters. And what I don't like about it is I'm finding it popping up all around my yard, which tells me that it's, pretty invasive. That's another sign too. So I think I'm going to be replacing mine with something a little less exuberant.
Yes, it really can sort of take over. But anyway, you may want to wait and see how it behaves, and when it does flower, you might want to send it in to Dr. John and see what he has to say about it, because if he's got the flower and the foliage, then I think he can tell you what you've got. Right now, I think maybe you do need to tie it up, and if it just gets too big, I guess you could just cut it back and keep it to the size that you want it. Amy, I think you've got something fun coming up. Tell me what it is.
Yes, next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to be there Tuesday, and our friend Andy Cabe will be one of the speakers on Wednesday. I think he's the keynote on Wednesday. The Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College Foundation is having their Home and Garden Symposium, and so it's going to be great. Morgan has invited me in the past, and my friend Joan McDonald and I are going to go and be some of the flower judges for the flower show again. So it's a really fun event. If you haven't signed up, I believe they still have tickets available, and encourage people to come.
The registration deadline is tomorrow, and people can register online. So yes.
And if you don't make it tomorrow, then call them on the telephone, because in South Carolina, a lot of times you say, "Oh, I just got behind." I've been there, and it's wonderful. Of course, it's right near where I live in St. Matthews, and Morgan was over there for a while, and it's a really fun day. The parking's actually easy, and they have real good food, and it's real pretty too.
Yeah.
So, and then you get to hear Amy and Andy and lovely Joan as well. What a great event. I'll have to check my calendar and see if I can come. Jennifer, we just are so tickled that you could come up and be with us and bring such beautiful, beautiful things. We just think as the produce starts rolling in down there that things are going to grow, and you're going to have to find more spaces for more people. And remind us again of when you are there and how people can find out how to get there and ask questions too.
Sure. We are, we are open every Thursday from 2 until 6. We're located right in downtown St. George. The best way to follow us is actually on our Facebook page. It's very easy. It's St. George Farmers Market right on Facebook. And we just want to invite everyone to come on down. We'd love to have you and show you what we have to offer in the upper part of Dorchester County.
Well, you certainly showed us some beautiful things, and I know as summer comes, it'll just get even more exciting. Terasa, thank you. We wish you a lovely day this Friday, a special day for you, and we look forward to having you with us next week.
Thanks, Amanda. My, how time flies when you're having fun. Always a great night in the chat room. Lots of good discussion. I haven't mentioned lately, but our Facebook page continues to grow in fans. We're up to 7,917 likes. So how about we try to get that to 8,000? I think that's a great goal. If you haven't checked out the Making It Grow website, please do that. Lots of great information on there, shorts that you can only see on the website and don't air on television. Amanda?
If you haven't seen my giving the chicken the bath, I would highly recommend that. I must say, the chicken was easier to bathe than some of the children that I have had in my bathtubs over the years. But anyway, I think we've got a caller that we might be able to squeeze in from Florence. James.
Hey.
Hey, how can we help you?
Florence.
Okay.
I've got a 3-year-old Burbank plum that got ran over by my neighbor 2 years ago.
Okay.
It seemed like it recovered pretty well last year. This year, it's growing plums and peaches on it. It's like a peach tree came out of the rootstock. Should I keep that peach tree or should I cut it off?
All righty. It looks like he's got the rootstock coming out, and it was intended to be, the rootstocks often are picked for a reason other than taste.
Yes.
So what would you do?
I would not keep the peach tree. If you still have plums, maybe keep those, but not the peaches. They're probably not a desirable fruit.
Because what do they look for in the rootstock sometimes?
Oftentimes disease resistance, cold hardiness. Those are probably the two main things that are looked for in rootstocks, and also that are compatible with the scions or the top of the plant.
Okay.
So it's probably a nice plum on a disease-resistant rootstock.
And we'll have wonderful South Carolina peaches coming
That's
in
right.
before we knew it. Next week we had a good time. We went out to the Columbia Canal Riverwalk Park with Dr. John and his botany class. We really had a good time. Vicki and I got a little lost, but that was okay because we saw a barred owl while we were out there. It was just fascinating. And we're going to bring you that segment next week. And we saw some people catching catfish in nets. It's a beautiful place. You know, it's just wonderful when we have these places to get away from urban areas that are just minutes away. And of course in Sumter we have the wonderful Swan Lake Iris Gardens they're just full of people all the time. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. It was wonderful. Good luck over in Orangeburg, and you have good luck in Orangeburg every day. We're so happy that you can find time in your busy new schedule as a financial person to squeeze in a little Making It Grow time.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here and get to be back with my friends and talk about gardening.
Well, and we want to hear more about those raised beds, and we want to thank you for calling tonight with your questions and sharing your pictures with us on Facebook. Terasa does such a good job putting them there, and I love to see what's happening on with our viewers, and I look forward to seeing you next week back here on Making It Grow.
Making It Grow is brought to you in part by Santee Cooper, South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. More information on green power and energy conservation programs online at santeecooper.com. The South Carolina Department of Agriculture, reminding you that certified South Carolina agricultural products help make South Carolina grow. McLeod Farms in McBee, South Carolina. This family farm offers seasonal produce, including over 22 varieties of peaches. Glory Foods, celebrating Southern food with a soulful heritage. Glory Foods, a way of inviting South Carolina back to the dinner table. FTC Diversified, a proud part of your local communities, providing communication, entertainment, and security. Art Fields, a 10-day art competition in Lake City, South Carolina. Additional funding provided by International Paper.